Hello, welcome to week 6. We're going to talk a little bit about you and me and I and it and what all that means. I hope you're doing well this week. Obviously the lecture is going up a little bit late, like it has every week. I think I want to mention something with that. I have due dates for you, and the due dates are mostly there, sort of. If you turn it in late, no big deal. I have due dates for myself too. I have a schedule that I try to meet, but occasionally life happens and the world happens, and crazy people threaten your governor, and the president comes down with COVID, and you watch a lot of TV or watch a lot of news on Apple on my phone, on the iPhone. Things happen. But more than that, what generally happens with me when I'm trying to produce something for you, like a lecture, is I am reading and thinking through the week, sometimes diligently and sometimes not. Sometimes I'm involved in grading and working on other things, and I don't get to the study like I would. Other times I'm reading through the week and building ideas. This week I was doing that. And then it came time for me to actually start thinking about doing the lecture on Friday, um, and or came Thursday, Friday, and I wanted more time. I wanted more time to build the ideas and construct something, because once I was finally met with that deadline, that meant I actually had to produce, and the production moment gets a little stressful. And you've probably felt that too. You had this project due this week for a workshop, and you probably felt this production moment kick in for you, and you had to all of a sudden produce something that maybe you'd been working on a lot, and maybe you hadn't. Maybe you'd been thinking about and considering and trying things out, and maybe you hadn't. But all of a sudden there's this deadline, and then you realize, oh, there's more I wanted to do here. Well, that's what happened this week with this lecture. That's what happened. This happened almost every week. I want to get a good lecture up for you. I want to get something helpful up for you. And then when finally it comes down to that moment where I know I've got to get to work or I'm not going to get it done by the due date, then I realize there's so much more I wanted to think about. So many more things I wanted to get. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, as I'm sure everybody is, when it comes to something you care about. And I care about this. Let's go ahead and get into the work of I and Thou, Martin Buber's I and Thou. It's kind of an odd book to pick for philosophy. It's a mix between poetry and philosophy and theology and just kind of craziness. I actually love the book. Maybe because that's kind of what I am too. I'm a mix between philosophy and poetry and talking and crazy. I shared it with you because I think it's worthwhile to read something more sustained rather than those 5-page, 10-page snippets in our textbook. And I actually think I and Thou is fairly accessible. I mean, it's weird and you have to follow it, and perhaps it's better to read in an altered state, or perhaps it's better to read when you have complete silence and you can actually study it. But I actually think once you get into it, once you feel the flow, and once you start to understand where Buber's going and you can kind of get into that mindset, there's something powerful about reading it. I'm just going to read a passage to you, and just I want you to feel it. I want you to think about the emotions of it. I want you to feel it wash over your body, and if you need to turn things down, or you need to just turn off my face, because God knows I'm distracting, I want you to think about it. When I confront a human being as my you, let me also mention I'm sorry, I know I just wiped out that whole thing I was trying to build. I had you read the Gregor translation because that was the free one. I actually like this translation more. This one is by Walter Kaufman. It was done in 1970, and it's a little more modernized. And here, he actually changes the word thou from thou to you. And I like the word thou, and he actually keeps it for the title. But you also has some accessibility to it. So here we go. I'm going to read this translation. When I confront a human being as my you and speak the basic word I you to him, then he is no thing among things, nor does he consist of things. He is no longer he or she, limited by other. He's and she's a dot in the world grid of space and time, not a condition that can be experienced and described, a loose bundle of named qualities, neighborless and seamless. He is you and fills the firmament, the entire sky. Not as if there were nothing but he, but everything else lives in his light. Even as a melody is not composed of tones, nor a verse of words, nor a statue of lines, one must pull and tear to turn a unity into multiplicity. So it is with the human being to whom I say, you. I can abstract him from the color, from the color of his hair, or the color of his speech, or the color of his graciousness. I have to do this again and again, but immediately he is no longer you. Even as prayer is not in time, but time in prayer, the sacrifice not in space, but space in the sacrifice, and whoever reverses the relation annuls the reality. I do not find the human being to whom I say you in any sometime and somewhere. I can place him there and have to do this again and again, but immediately he becomes a he or a she, an it, and no longer remains my you. As long as the firmament of the you is spread over me, the tempests of causality cower at my heels, and the whirl of doom congeals. The human being to whom I say you, I do not experience, but I stand in relation to him in the sacred, basic word. Only when I step out of this do I experience him again. Experience is the remoteness from you. I do think there's a value to reading Buber, even if he's kind of weird and confusing. I think there's a value to reading it out loud. There's a poetry there. I mean, I can see performing that on the stage. But there's also a philosophical basis that I think has some value to us, both for personal reasons and in thinking reasons. There's a way of constructing the world and the experience in Buber that is not found in other people. We're going to move to a PowerPoint, because how else do you find the beauty in language other than by looking at a PowerPoint? So sometimes I'd rather just be able to be with you and talk and not do PowerPoints. And if we were in the classroom, I probably wouldn't be doing as many PowerPoints. But I think the PowerPoints are helpful to lay out ideas on the screen and isolate them and highlight them. So we've got a PowerPoint. Before I get into the PowerPoint, let me tell you a little bit of a story. It's not going to be very much of a story. It's just really mostly a thing that happened. Last week, my 10-year-old was having a moment. Sometimes he has moments. We all have moments. His moment was being a little bit belligerent and a little bit dismissive and disrespectful of other people. In essence, he was not seeing us as fellow people, but as just disruptions to his day. He was mad. And so I was talking to him, and I was trying to tell him what this makes us feel and why this is a problem. And he kept on dismissing it, shutting it down, shutting himself off. So, I told him, look, this is about you and me. It's about how we relate to each other. I love you. I care about you. I want you to to experience that love, but also to give it back. I want to have a relationship with you. And when you shut me out like this, it makes me feel like nothing. To which he responded, okay, can I go play? It was at that moment that I did something I've never done before. And I hope I'd never do again. We don't hit our children at all. But we try to speak respectfully to them and honestly at all times. But at that moment, I actually said, fuck you. Like, fuck you. To my child, my beautiful baby boy. I feel horrible about it. I feel horrible sharing it. I can't tell you how much I love this child and how happy he makes me. And when he's not in the state of making me feel like an it, we have a great relationship. But sometimes he gets pretty dismissive, and it made me feel pretty empty. And I was there trying to help him, and he was rejecting. And all of a sudden, at a moment, I turned. I snapped. I moved from this moment of trying to have a direct connection with him to a moment where he was nothing. Let's get into Buber. So when we get into Buber, we have to think about, why is he in this project of trying to talk about words and basic words or primary words and meaning and who we are? Well, we have a basic problem as philosophers. What does it mean when I say I? Who am I? What is an I? And it's a basic problem because you can't really you can't prove a truth with itself. I is not meaningful because I as I. It's a weird way to say it. I is I. That's not meaningful. You can't prove 5 is 5 because it's 5. 3 is 3 because it's 3. That's not a proof. It's a language game. So I by itself is meaningless. It has no anchor to being. There is no sense of I all by itself. While I might exist, I should say I, not it, because I want to be very careful about using those words. While I might exist, I cannot have meaning without another. How do I know I is meaningful? It can't just be I. There has to be another. For Descartes, and Buber is without a doubt responding to Descartes at times and other philosophers in this book. There's a real part of this book where Buber gets into some pretty clear Descartes not bashing, rejection. Descartes connected I with thought. How do you know if I is meaningful? Well, thought makes I meaningful because mental action verifies existence. Mental action is another state, and therefore it verifies existence. I think I'm existing. For Buber, I is meaningful, though, only in relation. He says in I and Thou, there is no I taken in itself. And I'm going back to the translation you read. There is no I taken in itself, but only the I of the primary word, I, thou, and the I of the primary word, I, it. I can't just say I. In order to understand that I exist, I have to have I in a state of relation with somebody else, something happening at the moment. Or I have to have I in the state of relation of experience, of things that have happened in past. I cannot just say I know this sounds weird, and I know it sounds like this is just flipping weird talk. Who has time for this? We've got to go out and vote, or we got to go out and fight the world. We've got to make sure the world is just, and that's all true. But at times, unless we know who the we is, who the I is, and how the I relates, we have a hard time fighting the world. We have a hard time correcting the wrong. If I go back and look at that experience I had with my son, that horrible, horrible experience that I was almost immediately in tears because I've never spoken to my son that way before. If I go back to that experience and I think about what happened, I cast him from something real or something vibrant, something that I was experiencing, and that who was a thou, a being apart from me that had brought me into existence. I cast him from that into an it, something not real, something dismissed, something that I was angry at, and that was it. I was just angry. There was no attempt to build further relations with that. That was the great pain of that moment, that I moved him from a thou to an it. But that whole experience, and the reason why I'm sharing it with you, is because it makes I meaningful. It makes me understand more about who I am in this world. So this leads us to the two fundamental relationships that Buber talks about: I, it, and I, thou. You or an I does not exist unless it is in relations, I, it, and I, thou. Now, what does that mean? Well, I, it is experiential based. It's temporal. It happens in time, and it is material. It is something real that we can wrap our brain around. So, a bagel is experience. Even as I eat it, it becomes a thing I did once. It's an experience I can remember. I can remember the taste. I can remember the smell. I can remember the texture. I can remember the way it made me feel full. A bagel is experience. A book is temporal. A bagel is temporal too, by the way. I'm just using different examples here. A book is temporal. I read it, but I can only reflect on it as a past it. This book is meaningful for me. It adds meaning to my life when I reflect back on the times that I've read it and what it meant to me at that moment. And it has come back to me at different points in my life as a piece of meaning that I return to, that I go back and reflect on. What is that experience? What did it mean to me then? What did it mean to me 10 years ago? What does it mean to me yesterday? It's temporal. An ex-lover is a thing. It's a hard thing to say. Those people that you have loved in the past, even say my partner, who I love, she's temporal. She's ex. She is former. Now, she is also current, and we'll get to that in a moment. But that person that she was this morning, when she snorted at me for eating eating Fruit Loops. That person is an ex. She is only made of material as an object of thought. It is something I focus on, that I can reflect on, that I can think about. The I of I, it is also temporal. I exist in the past experience of I. This is what Buber says. The man who experiences has no part in the world, for it is in him and not between him and the world that the experience arises. It, this thing, happened at a moment, and it happened as an experience, and now it exists here. It is all back in the memory banks and in the reflection and in the critical thinking. It is not part of the reality. I, thou, on the other hand, is relational. I, thou is reciprocal. I, thou is immediate. So a bagel is relational. A bagel can be thou. I am transformed through the relationship I have with a bagel. It seems silly. A book is relational. The book returns my connection to it. The book gives to the eye. When I am in the middle of reading Buber, it comes alive for me. It is something real. It is something that I am having an immediate experience with. A lover is relational. The lover is present in the now and enters into connection with the I. We won't get into all the sexual nature of that idea, but there is something about being present with the lover and entering into connection, just as with a book and a bagel. There's a reality in that moment. Let's reflect for a moment on this. I'm walking through the grocery store, and all the people I pass who I sneer at when they're not wearing masks, or whose masks are on their lip instead of their nose, or those people who grab the last pack of M&Ms and I wanted it, or the people who are standing in front of me in line or just holding me up from getting on to the rest of my day. They are all he, she, it. They are not real. They are an experience I am having, an experience I had, an experience I reflect on. I have no way to actually engage in a relation with that because I'm too frustrated, or I'm too tired, or I'm too hungry, or I can't see them. Just like with my son, in that one moment, he was an it. But if we were to stop and talk, if I was to see that person for just a glimpse of a moment, if I was to enter into relation with another, that person becomes a thou. And sometimes those relationships are more sustained, and sometimes they are they are shorter, but they are real. They are immediate. The I is also relational. I is made relevant and meaningful through thou. So I is experience, I is it, but I is made meaningful through thou. The primary word, I thou, can be spoken only with the whole being. I become through my relation to the thou. As I become I say thou. I know, it's a little weird. You become who you are through your experience of the other, through your real relation with the other in the moment. And then that other becomes it as it enters into your memory, into your experience, into your emotions. It becomes it. It's weird, but it's kind of a fascinating theory. My son and I are okay. I love my son. He loves me. We are always in relation. Except for when we're not, when we can't see each other, when we fall apart from each other. But we will be okay. We'll always be in relation. We'll always keep on building meaning in each other's lives, except for those moments when we don't, when we fall back. Or my son yesterday was a different person than he is today. And the relation I build with him today is different than the one I built yesterday, where he is in it. This is a profound way of thinking about relationships you have and how you move forward with them. I think of my father, who's been gone for 5 years, who I love dearly and I miss dearly. And I think of how he has become an it. And that hurts. But I also think about how he lives in me, how his experience lives on in me, and how my relations with the world are changed because of my experience with him. Now I want you to think about another experience. Let's say somebody you hate because of what you think they are. This person of a different color or a different gender or a different sexuality or a different religion or a different something. You are a comic book fan and you are a DC person and there's a Marvel person, or you are a card player and you are a Yu-Gi-Oh player and a Magic player, or you are a TV watcher and you are a fan of Supernatural, or a fan of Friends. I don't know. I can't think of new TV. I want you to think about that moment of disruption between the possibility of relationships, where it is always going to be it because you just can't stand that it, and you can't ever really allow yourself to enter in a relation, except for that moment when you do, when you see somebody, when it becomes real and vibrant. There's a profound way of thinking about this that can actually affect the way we think about others, think about how we relate to the world. I'm proud of this. I made this. You have it becoming thou, the girl in the red shirt, who is being looked at as an object, and who the dude may or may not pursue as an object or as a you. And then you have the thou becoming it, the person whose hand is being held, who is in the moment being transformed into something past, something former, an experience that was once had. And then you have the asshole in the middle, who moves from thou to it, to thou to it, who experiences the world in these transitory moments. It takes real commitment to keep your head pointed the other way. Commitment on both sides. This is what Buber, towards the end of our reading for today, for this week, this is what he says. And in all the seriousness of truth, hear this. Without it, man cannot live. But he who lives with it alone is not a man. Gendered language aside. The truth. You can't live without your experiences. You can't live without the world. You can't live without objectifying others and things. But if you don't ever enter into a real relationship, if you don't ever experience the experience of thou, if you never, and experience is a weighted word there with Buber, if you never allow thou to become a part of I, you have a painful existence, a lonely existence, a hateful existence. It is only in that moment where I and thou are communing together that life meaning happens, where the I can exist. Yeah, weird stuff. Maybe hard to read unless you find the right moment to read it. But I think it's fairly powerful. I think it has something to add to our lives. And I think it works as a philosophy. You know, it's not the same kind of philosophy as Aquinas, who has 5 treatises on proving this truth. It's not always terribly logical, but there's something essential about it, about what is real and present in your life and how it becomes something different as you experience it. But you can move it to a kiss. The experience of a kiss. and how that kiss transforms from this thing you had, from this real present moment, into a thing that was. There's a philosophy there, a belief about what it means to be, what being is. This week we are looking at our projects. We are also preparing for our first exam. You are doing a wiki together. Hopefully that is going well. I looked at it the other day. There was only like 9 entries. So hopefully you're getting more into that, and hopefully that's helpful. We will be moving towards the exam early next week, and moving towards your projects to see where they're going. Keep in contact. Come visit the Philosophy Cafe. We had another great discussion this week. Keep in contact. Start thinking about your relations with others and what makes your life meaningful. And we'll talk to you soon.